So thank you all for coming to attend our campus and community engagement participation in the offender panel. We've been very fortunate to have Roger Harrington and Alondra Gonzalez from State Parole bring a group of individuals under supervision or under community supervision to make presentations, as well as staff from Zebulon Pike. So again, we're very fortunate to have this group. If some of you stand in the back want to come up and sit in the front row, pretend this is a rock concert, you want the front row, you've got the front row to sit in. Unfortunately, you have to sit on the floor to do that. I'm going to turn it over, rather than letting you know who our panel members are, I'm going to turn it over to Roger to give a little presentation first, and then we'll proceed with our panel members. Roger, thank you.
Good morning. You guys hear me? Okay? You're okay? All right. I think I've been doing this, I don't know for how many years now, and every year it gets a little bigger and a little better, I think. So today we've had some people that were going to come that couldn't come, and some people that we didn't know were coming who came. So you're going to have a great opportunity today to listen and learn to people that have been firsthand witnesses, if you will, to the correctional system. So a little bit about me. I've been in law enforcement since 1980. Yeah, that's probably before most of you were born. So I'm old as dirt. Yes, I'm about to die, but that's okay. I work for the state, which means I'm highly underpaid, and if you don't believe it, I can show you my checks. But it's a very rewarding field to be in, and it's a very interesting time to be in corrections because everything is changing. You may have heard for years that there's been a little push on here and there to conduct some reform, to change the way things are done, especially in a post-correctional setting. And I'm here to tell you that parole right now is not the same organization I went to work for 10 years ago. When I was a police officer and I started out, the first job that I went to, I said, well, what do I need to know? And they said, well, you need to buy some uniforms. We think maybe. And yeah, you probably ought to have some of this, and come back to work tomorrow. And when I started, there wasn't a requirement for post-certification for law enforcement, so you could work for a year without even knowing what you were supposed to know to do what you had to do. What nobody ever told me was that as a police officer, sheriff's deputy, whatever the case may be, you control the front door to the criminal justice system. It's really simple to shove somebody through the front door. But you have no idea what happens on the other side of that door, and you don't stop to think that 99% of the people that you push through that door are coming back out. So you've got to understand, in my opinion, if you want to be a good street officer, if you want to be a good DA, attorney, whatever it is that you're going to be, you've got to have some conception of what happens to people when they go through the door. What changes them on the other side, and what happens to them when they come back out. We were very fortunate a year or so ago to have a guy with us who was a medical doctor. And he came up and gave his presentation about how his life changed after being a convicted felon. One of the things I want you to be looking at in your career here at the school and your career as an officer is, what are the consequences for somebody who's convicted of a felony? What are the consequences we know about? And what are the unintended consequences that we may not know about that you need to understand? So in this particular case, we have somebody who's a medical doctor, which means he went to school for how long? 10, 12, 15 years. He had a thriving practice. He was convicted of a felony. He could never be a doctor again. What impact does that have on him? What impact does that have on our community? No excuse for what he did, but those are the kinds of things that you need to understand when you get into corrections. Is it's really easy to push somebody through the front door, to get them convicted, to send them off to prison. What's not so easy is dealing with the consequence of them going to prison and the impact that has on their lives our community, their family, and so on. So we have some guests with us today. Every single one of them is currently under supervision. The way this is going to work is this. My partner, Officer Gonzalez, is going to give you a little presentation about parole, what we do, why it's important. Then you're going to hear a presentation from another facility about what they do. And then when we get done, we're going to turn it over to our panel. And what they're going to do is they're going to stand up and talk to you for 5 or 10 minutes about who they are, what they've been through, what they've accomplished, how corrections has affected them. And then when they're all done giving their presentations, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So, being as I'm the guy who I guess at the moment is in charge of the room, I get to make the rules, and here's what those are. They get to tell you whatever they want to tell you. They're not going to be censored. They say parole sucks. Cool, they get to do that, because you know what, it probably does from some point of view. If they tell you it's great, it's their perspective. They have not been told what to say. They're not being told what to say. They get to say whatever they want to say. When they're all done, you have the opportunity to ask questions, and here's the rule. You can ask anything you want, but these are people who are volunteering their time to be with you today. So my rule is that you've got to be courteous and respectful. You can ask any question you want, and they, because they're people, have the right to say, you know, I don't feel comfortable answering that question, and that'll be the end of that, okay? This is not a zoo. We're not here to poke at them. We're not here to make fun of them. We're here to learn from their experiences, because if you enter any phase of the criminal justice system, what you do can affect people like this. And you need to understand how that happens on the other side of that door. Because they're going to come back out. They're going to come back and live with us. They're living next door to you now. You just may not know it. They may be the waiter that just served your drinks. They may be the waitress that just served your drinks. They may be a college professor with a PhD that's teaching your program. Because, oh, by the way, we have one of those on the panel today. So, I want you to take the opportunity to listen to what these people are telling you today, so that you have an understanding of things that you can't learn out of textbooks. You can't learn watching videos. You can't learn watching cop TV. Trust me, it's all nonsense. So, please take notes. Form your questions wisely, because you're going to have a chance to ask people who really know what really is going on. And then you'll have the opportunity to do what you're here for, and that's to learn. Because these people are great teachers about something that you have not experienced. Does that make sense? We all clear on what's going to happen? Okay, so with that, I'm going to shut up and give it to my partner who also happens to work for me, Alondra Gonzalez, who's been an officer with our agency for a while now. She's on my team. She actually supervises a sex offender caseload right now. And she's going to give you a presentation about parole. And if you see her on campus, that's because she took my advice, silly girl, and she's actually now getting her master's degree. What I will tell you is this. If you have any desire to be in law enforcement at all, whatever that means, attorney, private attorney, district attorney, prosecuting attorney, police officer, whatever the case may be, public administrator, go to school, finish your degree, get as much schooling as you can now while you can. Someday you can wake up like me and realize that you're too old to go back to school, and you keep getting offered jobs that you don't qualify for because you don't have the right degree. Don't waste your time. Get a bachelor's degree, get a master's degree, keep going as long as you can, because education is going to help you succeed in whatever public safety career you go to. I'm glad you don't live in my house, because my kids hear this all the time. Have you finished school yet? Did you do your homework yet? There's reasons for that. It translates to a better career. It translates you being able to be better at helping these people and ultimately making more money. So don't quit school. Don't get married. Don't have kids. Don't do that. Because once you do any of that, you're done. Trust me. I'm paying for braces and anyway, get done with school before that, and you will never regret it. All right? So with that, I'm going to give it to Officer Gonzalez, and she's going to wow your socks off.
Thanks, guys. If you've been here in the past few panels and boards, you've probably already heard kind of what parole does. This is my third time coming, but I'll give you kind of a quick overview of what we do. I've been with the division just a year, so it's been an delightful year. I've learned a lot. I graduated with a criminal justice degree out of the University of Northern Colorado, and then currently enrolled into the graduate program here for my master's in criminal justice and public administration. So again, if you see me on campus, just say hi. So with that being said, so we work with the Department of Corrections, the Division of Parole, Adult Parole. Kind of what we do, we get the offenders after they've been in the prison system for, it could be up to a year, it could be up to 25 years, they come out under supervision of parole. So it's a little different than probation. I know sometimes there's a little bit of a confusion there, but we're after, is the simplest way for me to put it. So what we do when they come out. So we supervise parolees. We get them into some type of reentry program if that's what they need, if they need resources to reenter the community and be successful in the community. As you can imagine, coming out after being locked down 25 years, 15 years, even a year, time keeps moving, and at this rate we're moving quite rapidly. So we get them out and try to reintegrate them into the system without, or into the community, sorry, without them falling back into old habits that got them there in the first place, being drug addictions, mental health illnesses, and all of those. So I guess some of the things here is that we do impose curfews, we impose some type of directives, parole directives that they have to abide to, be no contact with victims, personally for my offenders, no contact with minors. I mean, it's kind of your own parole contract that they have to abide to. At any moment that they disobey any of the directives, then there could be obviously a repercussion or a sanction for it. So a big part of our job right now is to rehab these people back into the community, to build some type of strong, stable foundation so they can have more of a succeeding chance not to go back into the system. So we work really closely right now with the community reentry system. What we do is sometimes we have parole transition houses. So we'll, the division will rent a house and put a few of the offenders in there that don't have anywhere to go. So instead of being homeless, we help them for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks rent until they can get some type of job, and they proceed from there. And these are all over the community. I know that Denver has some of them, the Springs has a few of them, and I'm sure any other county has some as well. Let's see. And again, we use the government resources to assist those that need it. The community reentry specialists at the office, they will kind of direct them of where to go for Medicaid, their ID, their birth certificates. I mean, these are very minor things that we all have, but when they come out after 25 years, it's going to be a little different for them to be able to just get up and get it. They sometimes don't know exactly how to do it. So we have specialized units within the division. We have obviously what we deal with, Officer Harrington and I, with the sex offenders. We have gangs. A lot of the time, some of the mental health might need a little more resources and obviously a little more time from you. And we have return to custody and then halfway houses as well under parole. And then we have the YOS, so which is the youth offender system there. Hours, I mean, we typically, the nice thing of parole is that we can work hours of 8 to 5. But with that being said, if something does roll over, we can work until 2. There's been times I've gone home 9 the next day. So we can, that's how I manage to attend my master program right now, is that we're off at 5 unless something comes up, and we kind of respond to it, because at the end of the day we are sworn officers, so we have to respond to whatever might be happening. So, okay. So I think one of the biggest things right now on how to become a parole officer, just because I have to speak out of personal experience, I'm not that old, so I can kind of empathize with you guys on the struggles of once you graduate and not finding a job, but I think the way criminal justice is going, the direction it's going, the involvement you have with other people's and people's lives, offenders, and their families, having that high level of education, just as a degree, is crucial. So we start off there. And some of those common majors along for parole officers as human services, psychology, corrections, criminal justice, so sociology, those are great. Communications as well is good because we were constantly communicating with the and ex-con or their families that aren't. So from there, you do have to be post-certified right now as a state officer, so to get your post-certification. I'm not too aware of the programs here that offer that, but I'm sure Officer Harrington knows some places where you can do that. I got mine through the Will County Sheriff's Department. I was able to do that. It was about $2,500, but I definitely saw it as an investment, so it's definitely helped. So some of the experience that they might look for, and again, this is, kind of just an overview of it, is having some type of experience in detention facilities, having some type of experience in related fields, right? So I know internships at ComCore, internships at the parole office, soon to come in spring, hopefully. Internships with CSPD, all of that's going to look really, really crucial because you're already making interactions with these guys and these females. So applying, obviously, we would not want any criminal convictions on your record. Citizens of the U.S., ability to pass the drug test, don't want you under the influence. That includes marijuana. 21 years or older, and then you can kind of see the rest. So I had to do a psychological test when we got into the division. I don't know if that's a common practice, but I think it might be for other police departments as well. So we do that, and then this state of peace officer, so the post. It was kind of quick, rough overview of what we do. We do a lot more than that, but you guys probably have heard it from the last presentations I've done. Do we have any questions over it? And you can never be really too young with dealing with this. Yes, sir?
How often do departments send their recruitees to get their post certifications? Because some departments do this.
Actually, I think the division just started doing that. It's the training.
We have a program called a State Service Trainee, and if you apply and are accepted for that position, you're hired as a trainee. Part of that is that you will then be an employee of ours, and you will be sent to a regional police academy to obtain your post-certification. We pay for that. You sign a contract when you get hired that you will stay for a certain period of time, and if you leave before that time is up, then you'll reimburse us for the cost of the program. Right now, for a freestanding law enforcement academy, you're looking at about $8,000 to get through that program, and that, depending on whether you go full-time or part-time, is going to take you anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It's a substantial investment of time and money. I'm not working here, I teach at the police academy at Pikes Peak Community College, and we are always full because people are looking at that. It is eligible for reimbursement under the VA and some other programs. You can go to a police academy and not have a job. You're going to pay for that out of your pocket. And then that certification is good for 3 years. You've got to get a job within that 3 years, or you have to repeat the academy or do a refresher academy. I don't know of any other correctional agency that does that. If you work as a correctional officer in a prison, you're not required to be post-certified. If you go to work for a large police agency like Colorado Springs, El Paso County, Denver, they have their own academies, and you're just going to go to their academy. Doesn't matter if you're already post-certified, they're going to send you to their academy. But if you want to work for a smaller agency like Manitou, Monument, Fountain, places like that, they don't have their own academies, they'll expect you to be post-certified when you come to them. From our perspective, we'd rather you be post-certified when you come because it just takes forever to get you trained. Right now, we've got 5 people in academies elsewhere getting training for the workforce.
Do big departments charge you to go to their academies when they send you to their academies?
No. And the advantage to working for CSPD or El Paso or Denver, one of those big agencies, is you're getting paid while you're there. So you're not paying for the academy, and you're going to be paid while you're there. Mind you, I work for a freestanding academy, so we make money if you come to our school. But I'm going to tell you, if you get hired, it's a cheaper way to go because they're going to take care of it.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
We have other guests from Zep Mike, Tom, Shelley. Would you like to come up and introduce your panel members?
Actually, I do want to say something just quickly. It's really important for the community to get involved if there's going to be any success when people move into the community. Esteban Medina was actually at Zebulon Pike several years ago, and he worked with Mr. Andrews and I, and he left, and then he ended up on DLC, came out of DLC and turned his life around and started Second Chance Ministries, which he's going to present here in just a minute. But he came back and partnered with us. So in the past 8 years, we've had several kids leave the facility and get hooked up with him and his mentors. And they are still working in the community, feeding the homeless, and being very successful. But it's because of the mentorship and the resources and what Esteban and Second Chance Ministry does that creates that success. And a lot of these individuals would have had nowhere to go but back to their gangs. He is an ex-gang member, and as you know, at Zebulon Pike, the treatment facility that we're from, probably about 80% of our kids are gang members, and they are generational, so it's what they learn, it's what they live and what they learn. So Esteban comes in and he connects with our youth while they are in the facility. They get out of the facility on Thursdays, like the last 6 months that they're there, and they establish relationships, and he takes them and teaches them how to live a life outside of the criminal aspect, you know, going bowling into the show and all these great things, but a large part of that is giving themselves to something much bigger and going into the community and serving and learning what it feels like to be accepted by the community. Esteban has a lot of respect in the court system and in the community, and they just embrace these youth because they come out and they start getting treated and valued in a different way than they've ever known, and that's what causes them to turn that curve and get out and want to be successful. So I know you're all familiar with restorative justice, and like the gentleman said earlier, once these young men come out and they get into the community, it takes a whole lot of people to surround them and to encourage them and continue to help them, which in the long run pays for us, because if you have one gang member come out of the facility and decide that he's not going to recruit other gang members, little cousins, kids at school, to do the kind of work that gang members do, sell drugs and commit burglaries and a lot of crime, just one, the ripple effect is unexplainable. You can't even explain what it is. You can't even describe what it means for one young man to come out of there and decide that he is going to work with Esteban and the Second Chance Ministries for the community. And then they start to role model for kids. They begin to mentor kids in our facility. And over the past 8 years, we go on Thursday nights. Esteban takes kids to feed the homeless at Acacia Park. And last week we had almost 13 youth that have been released over the past couple of years that were there on their own accord serving and trying to help the homeless and doing what they need to do, and they're working because Esteban has a lot of connections and helping them get jobs. And so that's really the impact on our community. Can't describe it. So with that said, I'm going to take it over and I'll tell you a little bit about this program. And Zebulon Pike also goes to Spring Creek, but our facilities are making, it's much different than facilities across the state of Colorado because we have that connection with the community. And it's just, I'll let him talk.
Okay, I got it. This video on. Are we gonna? Okay, I'm not gonna sit down. Can anybody hear me? My name is Esteban Medina.
Charlie said I was in the facility several years ago. It was like back in the 90s. At the age of 12 is when I went into Zay Pipe. My lifestyle, my family, my home was broken. My dad was a drug dealer. Ended up getting addicted to drugs. That was when cocaine was hitting the streets. So we went from having things to not having things. So I started reaching out to the streets. And they showed me that love and acceptance and everything that I wanted. So when I got to the streets, I started wanting to put in work and do all the things that I had to do. I spent most of my life incarcerated. From the time I was 12, I was in and out of the system. I got out when I was 17. I got sent to Glen Mills. Had a scholarship, all that, but I went back to the same neighborhood. I was always just going back. And it kept me trapped. When I was 18 and 4 months, I caught my adult case. I caught 2 attempted murder charges and went to prison. So, when I was 18 years old, on my way to prison. When I got to prison, I did 7 years, and then I got out. Again, I went back to the same thing that I knew. I didn't know. I didn't have a job. I never worked. I never had anybody speaking life into me or telling me that I could do something that, you know what I mean? Not to, I remember being on parole, and they give you, or when you're getting ready to parole, they gave me a sheet of resources, and when I got out, I called all of them. None of them were open. You know what I mean? So you guys might want to update that. Excuse me. So again, when I came back into that lifestyle, the only thing I knew was what my dad was doing, sell drugs. And see, here's the thing about it is I remember growing up hating my dad and always telling myself I'm never going to be like him. You know what I mean? Because the things that I seen at home and stuff like that. So I didn't want to be like my dad. I hated him. Well, as time went on, I started selling drugs and doing all kinds of stuff. And I know gang members, we joined the gang because we're looking for respect and loyalty and, you know, just that love. And come to find out it's not even there. It's not real. It's fake. I mean, it took me years of going through things to have to figure that out. One of the guys that was supposed to be a solid stand-up gangster, whatever you want to call it, he ended up turning state's evidence on us. We got caught with drugs. I luckily violated my parole. I was already in the county, so I wasn't there when it happened. I was scared that the feds was going to pick it up afterwards, so I didn't know if I was going to get out. But it all worked out. I got out, and I was kind of done with that, but then here I am. I'm 26 years old, 25 years old. Didn't know how to work. You know what I'm saying? So I got put back into society, and I didn't have like nothing to do. And every job that I was able to get, everybody was a parolee coming out of prison. So we had, our whole crew was like a different, you had a heroin addict, a meth addict, a cocaine addict, an alcoholic. So it was all right there. And then prison is just a whole different story. I mean, that's the first time I ever seen heroin in my life. So I got introduced to other things there. Eventually, it kind of got hard because then, you know what I mean, now I got bills, I got a phone bill, I got, you know what I mean, all these things, I got kids, and how am I supposed to do this? So I turned to the drugs. I turned to the alcohol. Within 4 years of me being out, well, by 2008, I ended up on my deathbed. And when I say that, I had end-stage liver disease. I had full-blown cirrhosis. I went to the hospital and they told me I had 3 months to live and they were giving me a 5% chance. that day my kids were there, and it was just, you know what I mean? And I always had this. I just didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to be a productive member in society. I didn't know how to do anything, really. And you had to do time. I was good at that. And I remember my son, he was 3 at the time when he came in, and he was like, Dad, hurry up and get better, so come home, I'll give you a sucker punch. And it was just, that broke me. You know what I mean? My family left that day, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and all these things were just running through my head, and like, this is how I'm going to die, this is what it's going to be, this was my life. I didn't do nothing with myself, I didn't accomplish anything. And it was then that I was just tired of being like that. You know what I mean? And when you're stuck in a situation like that, you're really ready to reach out to anything that'll help, right? So I reached out to God. And I didn't, I used to be one of them dudes that I kind of believed back in the day, but I never, I only prayed when I went to court or something like that. You know, just being real. And I don't know, but he did something in my life, because I'm here today. You know what I mean? I remember the doctors were like, dude, we don't help people like you. You know what I mean? I can understand what they're saying now. At the time, I didn't. But, I'm a human being, too. But, I did that to myself. And then one doctor had to put it like, dude, like there's somebody that lived a productive life, and his liver, got messed up through a disease that he had. So why should we give you one when you're the one that did this to him? So I understood that. February 15th, my heart stopped. I died on the table, and I remember the last thing I remember was the nurse hitting my chest. And everything went out. For the first time in my life, I felt free. I mean, this bright light came on. That's a whole different story, but I seen the light. And it was just, I had a lot of things that I was holding on to, and I realized that a lot of it was the hatred and anger and the resentment towards my parents. Because I remember when I got to prison, I blamed my parents for not being parents. My mom was like a homie, and my dad was always in and out. You know what I mean? So I let go of that. I quit holding on to it. And I was in the hospital for 9 months. I was 97 pounds. So I looked like, the way I explained it to the kids I worked with is I used to look like one of them little pit bull bullies when I first got out of prison. The stocky ones. And then I went to a little broke down hairless chihuahua. I'm talking about, you see those on Facebook? That's what I looked like, because I was 97 pounds. I couldn't walk, my body was just, I was losing myself. And so I was in the hospital for 9 months, and then I remember, through that time, I was just always thinking, man, I want to be able to have kids. Because I went through the system as a juvenile, and I remember counselors that would come in and tell me, bro, I used to do the same things you did, I just never got caught. I used to do stuff like this, and I just got away with it. But it was never sincere. Dude, you never seen your dad OD with a needle in his arm 3 times, you know what I mean? That's the reality of my life. But then again, dude, I didn't talk about it. You know what I mean? And that's what's different with the kids that we work with. I could kind of relate to them and kind of talk to them about different things that some of us have no idea or clue that goes on in these homes. You know what I mean? So, of course, when I got out, and it took me about a year to recover. But as soon as I got a little bit better, I walked to a school, and I went into a school. I told them I want to talk to your kids. You can imagine what that was like. Dude, what are you trying to do, recruit our kids or something? But I had a few people that worked with me, and I kept calling Tom at Zed Pike. I was like, dude, I used to be there. Let me go talk to these kids. And it's the same thing. I mean, people judge me right away. And they see the tattoos, they see, that part of it, so they don't understand what I'm really trying to do. But doors were open, and I was able to go in, and we started off our first summer with 30 kids, and we still have relationships with those kids. And that was now going on 8 years ago. From being a convict and living that life, living that way, completely did a complete turnaround in my life. No longer the person that I used to be. It gets to a point where you have to want it, I guess, you know what I mean? And I'm going to show you guys this video. In this video is, I think, the first picture that you're going to see is me. I'm in the middle. I was 17. That's when I just got out of juvenile facility. Actually, I was on the fast. And then it kind of shows you everything else that I went through. So, play this real quick. So that's me when I was 17. That was when I think I just turned 19 in that picture. As you see, I didn't have no tattoos when I went in, and then over a period of time, I'm covered. I had a lot of time in there. That's when I got sick. Any questions?
So, what advice would you give people who need to let go of ill feelings so that they don't have to go through what you went through?
One thing that I've learned is to be completely transparent with the kids about my past. Because a lot of times when you're trying to get these kids to bring up their past, they don't want to do it. Because me being brought up in my home, I was told like anything that goes on in our home is not to be told to anybody else. What happens here stays here. So, I think for me it's just being completely transparent, talking about my stuff, and it's just planting the seed. You know what I mean? You kind of just throw some things out there, and they start to think about it. And I think that's one of the best things about working with the kids in the facility is when they come out to our groups, we can tell them things, and then they'll go back and think about it, and then they'll come back and be like, you know what, I was thinking about what you said. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think for me it's just being completely transparent.
Do you think the counselor's inability to relate to you kind of pushed you away from their counseling?
It does, because we get brought up in a different environment. You know what I mean? Like, we're not supposed to tell anything outside of what's going on in our home. So when they're trying to get stuff out of you, or they're trying to tell you, like I did, I know what you're going through, or, you know what I mean? You don't believe them. And you know what, like the kids that are getting locked up at a young age and stuff, you might think that they're not there, but they've been through some things, and they're smart. And they can tell if you're being real or if you're being fake. You know what I mean? And I think that's some of the problems that I see even like today. You know what I mean? They try, you have people trying to analyze them and try to judge them and try to say this is what you're dealing with, and it's not even that. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah. Anything else? No? Good? Do I pass it on over here? Or I can go over here?
Your choice.
So my name is Isaiah. I'm at Zed Pike. Just tell you a little bit about me. I'm from Oakland, California. I moved to Denver when I was 5, and just lived a regular life. You know what I'm saying? Played basketball, went to school, did what I was supposed to do, got good grades, and then when I hit around like 11, I started hanging around my cousins that were gang banging and stuff, smoking, doing everything they were really supposed to do. So when I started hanging out with them, I pretty much became a follower. So I did as they did, I did as they told me to. So when I hit 12, I met my dad before I turned 13. And I never met him before. And like what Esteban said, my dad was like my homie to me. He wasn't really no father figure. He talked a big game, but he didn't really do nothing. And then when I turned 13, I moved back to Oakland. And the first 2 weeks I was back, my cousin is named Julian. He got shot. I was with him. He took a couple bullets for me because I started gangbanging and stuff like that. And that's a lot of guilt that I have to this day. And the people don't even know about this. The people that actually know me, you know what I'm saying? And he took the bullets for me, and it's just hard to talk about. But when I hit 14, I was still in California. I went to school for 2 weeks, and then I just said forget it. Started gangbanging again, started hanging out with the wrong people, beating up people, just doing random stupid stuff. Then I got in trouble, so my mom sent me back to Denver to go live with my dad, pretty much saying that it's his turn to take care of me. And my dad was a drunk, he was abusive, he didn't ever hit on me, but he would hit on my sister. And one night I just had enough of it, he was drunk, and I just pretty much took off on him, started beating him up. The whole family just started jumping. So my mom sent me back to California the same night that happened. And as soon as I got back, I started doing the same stuff, even though I told her I wasn't about to do it. I wasn't about to keep gangbanging. I'm gonna go to school. Went to school for 2 days, did the same thing, left. So I was selling drugs in my mom's apartment. So we got evicted, and I was homeless, living in a car for about like a month. Waiting for my mom to find a house on Craigslist so we can come back to Denver. So my mom finally found a house, we came back out, and then after that I started going to school. I did good for a little while. So I was still gangbanging, but I was still doing good. Got good grades for like the first trimester, and then started doing stupid stuff again. And then at the end of the summer, me and a couple of my friends, we caught a case. I was 15. We were supposed to be robbing the plug, the person that was bringing me drugs and stuff. We robbed him, but then he ended up getting killed. You know what I'm saying? And I was high at the time. I didn't care if he got killed or not. Like, I was just kind of cold-hearted because of all the stuff that I've been through and all the stuff that I've seen. Like some of the stuff that I've seen, I wake up in cold sweats, and that's stuff I can't tell people about. But I've done a lot. And then after that happened, I heard that a couple of my friends got picked up, so as soon as I turned 16, I went to Job Corps in Colorado in Cobra. And then as soon as I got there, I did good, and then I did the same thing, started doing stupid stuff, got into a fight, got kicked out. I got kicked out, I came back, I went to West High School in Denver, played basketball, did good, and I felt like I was starting to do good again. And then I got picked up at home. Right before I turned 17, they picked me up from my house. I was high, all types of stuff, because my mom went out of town to go visit some family, so I was about to go party at the house. I'm not gonna lie. And I was high off a whole bunch of drugs, and when I got picked up, it didn't even feel real, because this was my first time being arrested, locked up, and handcuffed, anything. So when they arrested me, it just felt like it was a dream. So when I got there, I just went straight to sleep, and I was dreaming about, and I had a dream that night, like, I just put on some clothes, I'm about to go outside, I'm about to go live my life. And as soon as I opened my eyes, it was just a door closed, brick walls, dirty room, you know what I'm saying? And I just felt like an animal. It didn't feel real to me. It still doesn't feel real to me till this day, because I'm still locked up. So when I woke up that next day, I saw people that I knew that I didn't really care about, but there were some people I was cool with. And I went to court that same day, and they said that they were going to charge me as an adult and give me like 40 years in prison. And all I thought about was like, why me? You know what I'm saying? Why did I make that dumb decision? But at the same time, I did it, so I'll take the time. It don't really mean nothing to me. I didn't really care regardless of the fact, because that's what was instilled. It's instilled in me. My family always taught me, don't say nothing, do your time. If it happens, just keep quiet. So I was like, all right. But then, that same week I started reading the Bible, getting into God and stuff, and I prayed that they drop it down to a juvenile charge, and they did that. And they said, and the only reason why I went to juvenile charge is because when it happened, I was 15. So they were going to give me like 6 to 16 years Wild West, and I wasn't going for that. I didn't want that, because I don't want to be locked up that long. So they dropped it to 3 to 5. I didn't want that either, but that probably was going to be my last choice. And then I prayed one more time, and I was like, I just give me like 1 to 2 or 2 to 4, and they dropped it to 2 to 4. And I took that deal, you know what I'm saying, went to Montview. The Montview assessment, where they assess you for like risk scores, if you're gonna run, if you're passed and all that, and then they sent me to that Pike. That Pike is like the best transition facility in DYC. They took you in a whole bunch of passes, you know what I'm saying, so you can get acclimated back into the community, so you won't feel like an animal. Because that's what I felt like most of my time. I'm already been locked up for 2 years, and I still got 1 more year to go. And then my mandatory, when I'm supposed to get out, is 2019, and that's my first time being locked up at 15. So I didn't expect none of that to happen. But I've learned a lot from being locked up. I learned how to trust people, because I didn't trust nobody. I learned how to love and how to treat people with respect, because I didn't respect a lot of people. I barely even respected my mom. Never stole from her, never did nothing like that. But it was just the fact that I was breaking rules in her house. And I learned from that, and I didn't even think I was going to graduate. I'm supposed to graduate now from high school. I just turned 18. But after that, I'm moving out here to Colorado Springs, so I'm supposed to go to Pikes Peak Community College. I'm going to try to transfer over here if I can. And so that's pretty much it. Anybody got any questions?
So what was exactly the crime that you got locked up for?
Well, when they picked me up, they gave me first-degree murder and aggravated robbery, but they had no evidence, or they didn't see me on camera either with the first-degree murder, so they dropped that, and they didn't really have evidence for the aggravated robbery, so they got me in conspiracy. Is there any more questions?
I feel like I'm asking a lot, but when you got transferred to, like you said, it made you feel less like an animal. Do you think facilities, if you weren't transferred there, do you think you'd still be living a life of crime, or?
If I didn't get locked up?
No, if you didn't get transferred to a better facility like Pikes, you said.
Where I still feel like I was living like an animal?
Yeah, would you still feel more willing to commit crime in a facility that kept you locked up forever?
I'm not gonna lie, yeah. I'll probably be doing dumb stuff, because when I first got locked up, I was doing dumb stuff, like people, still gangbanging. I'm still gangbanging to this day. I'm not gonna sit up here and act like I I changed my life. But yeah, I feel like I'll still be doing some stupid stuff.
So you think facilities probably should go more towards getting programs like Pike has to try to help inmates?
Definitely, but it all depends honestly on the area. Cause I'm from Denver. I was really supposed to be at Lookout. Have you heard of Lookout Mountain? It's another facility, but it's bigger, and it's mostly where the Denver kids go. But I couldn't go because the person I did my crime with was there, and he has a restraining order on me. So I couldn't go there, so they sent me out here, and they said there was a lot of opportunities for me out here more than Lookout. So I think that it all just depends on the area and what kind of kids are there, because a lot of the kids that are at our facility, a lot of them have short time. I have the longest commitment there, but a lot of them have short time, so it's good to get them back into the community before they step down to like a halfway house like the Griffith Center or the Dell House and stuff like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you said that you get back into school, and it sounds like you said you did well in school, you get back into life, and then back into school. Was it that the streets were easier, and you didn't like school, or was there something that kept you back, bouncing back and forth between the two?
I like school. I still like school. I usually just did good around basketball season so I could play. But the streets, people think of it as easy. Yeah, some of it's easy work, but some of it's not. You know what I'm saying? I can name everything, but it was easy money, quick money. I like expensive stuff. My mom didn't always have the money; she just lend me it, so I had to go out and get it. But now that I see that won't last forever, I gotta have something to fall on. So I'm gonna go to school. That's my plan. Any more questions?
Do you know what you'd like to go to school for?
I would like to go for communications, and if not, then psychology. I want to be like a sports commentator because I like sports a lot. Is there any more questions? All right, thank you.
Let me just clarify something because I saw a lot of question marks go up. There's 3 correctional systems in Colorado. There's the Department of Corrections, which is DOC. There's the Department of Youth Corrections, which is DYC. And there's YOS, which is Youth Offender. And he just touched on those because basically what happens is in Colorado, if you commit a crime as a juvenile, the district attorney can choose whether or not to charge you as an adult or not. So the question I would ask is how old do you have to be or how young can you be and still go to prison? Anybody know? The correct answer is it's up to the district attorney. So in his case, he took a deal that allowed him to go to DYC, Youth Corrections. If he had been tried and convicted as an adult, he would have gone to YOS, which is the Youth Offender System. So basically that means that a juvenile can go to adult prison, right? Now we have a separate facility just for them, but that's just something you need to be aware of when you hear all these terms going around, is you got DYC, who's for juveniles, YOS, which is juveniles who were tried and convicted as an adults, even though they were juveniles at the time, and then you have DOC, which is for adults. So I hope that clarifies that. So you could potentially go to YOS as a juvenile, serve time, and actually come out well into your adulthood. So we used to have a speaker that came here, who's not able to come anymore, but he was tried and convicted as an adult when he was 16. He didn't come out of prison until he was 32. So when we talk about the consequences of what happens to somebody in the justice system, think in your own mind for a minute about what would happen if you went to prison at 16 and didn't come out until you were 32. What kind of an impact would that have on your life? So just to clarify those things.
My name is George Villa. I'm 19 years old, and I've been gangbanging since I was 10 years old. Representing from my gang. That's what really got me into trouble in the first place, because I grew up. I have a loving mother. My mom loves me to death. I'm a mama's boy. But my pops been in and out of prison since I was a youngster, since I was a little kid. He's a gang member too, and now we don't get along because we're from opposite colors. So he's like my rival basically. And I started gangbanging when I was 10 years old. When I was 12, I got locked up in DYC. In 2010, I went to Spring Creek and I did the 2 years there, my mandatory 2 years. When I got out, I was thinking about changing, you know, but like Esteban said, I went back to the same streets I was on. I went back to Pueblo. I grew up in Pueblo, and when I was in Pueblo, and I just, like, they would tell me, believe in God, believe in God. Part of me, I believe in God 100%, but part of me was like, oh, if God's real, why is he putting me through all this struggle, you know? So I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go back to my hood. I started doing the same stuff, and I was only out for 3 months, and I got picked up for a aggravated armed robbery, and I went to ROP, that's in Watkins, Colorado. And I was in Watkins, and I was there for 9 months, I was fighting every day. I didn't have no levels there, no passes, no nothing, and then I ran from there. I caught an escape charge, and I went to Zed Pike my first time. That was back in July of 2013, and I was there for about 2 years. I left a month before my 2-year mark. When I got out, well, while I was there, I was younger. I was 16, so I'd fight all the time. You know, if someone even looks at me wrong, I'm fighting them. But I did my 2 years there. I got out, and after a while, I was like, I'm gonna do good. I'm gonna do right. I'm gonna do what I have to do to stay out. And that didn't last too long because I got out and I went back to my same homies. I was out for 6 months. I only did good for like a week, and then I went on the run. I started doing drugs. I got tatted up on my face, so I just kept gangbanging. I just wanted to do me, you know, like my mom. It breaks my mom's heart that I've been locked up for so long. And she looks at me. She don't like all my tattoos, but you know, like my mom's. She loves me to death, but she wasn't there all the time neither, you know, like she had me when she was young, so she liked to party. So she would go out and party, and me and my older sister would be at the crib by herself, but so like, and when I was in Spring Creek, she was doing a lot of drugs, and it would hurt me, you know, like it would hurt me when my parole officer would tell me like, yeah, your mom's out there doing this and that. So when I got out, I was like, let her hurt, you know, like she put me through the same pain, so I'm gonna put her through this pain. But now I've been locked up since November 14th. November 14th. I got caught in Lahana, Colorado, on the run. I was in Lahana County for like 7 days, I think. Then they moved me to Pueblo County. I was in Pueblo County for 3 months, and I was facing another escape charge, and they were trying to send me to prison for it. But the only reason why I got away with that was because they messed up on my social security number. So I got found not guilty by technicality, but I got lucky. They sent me back to Zed Pike, and I've been at Zed Pike since February. And I don't know, I've been doing good, you know, like I wanted to get my tattoos removed, but my parole officer, he said it's too late to start that, because usually they pay for it, but it's too late. Because I'm about to get out November 20th next month, so it's too late to start it because he said I'm probably not even going to finish it. But I can't get my face tattoo removed, so. But my plan is just to get out, and I don't know, my grandma, she has cancer. My cousin, she has open heart surgery today from doing drugs. And that kind of opened my eyes because my cousin's my best friend, you know. So when I get out, I ain't gonna mess with no drugs, you know. Like I'm gonna always love my homies and where I'm from, but I don't know, I ain't gonna be out there with them like that because it opened my eyes after all these years. Maybe 2 or 3 homies would write me while I was in jail, and that was when they were in jail. If they were out, they'd forget about me, you know, like what kind of homies is gonna forget about me like that? But I'm gonna always love where I'm from, but I'm finna just get out and try to do good. I'm gonna try to get a job. I don't plan on going to college. School ain't my thing. I've never really liked school, but that's really it. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you.
I started drinking when I was about 16 years old. Probably very few of you in here that knows what a 3-2 bar was way back then. They don't have them anymore. But at 16, there was a 7-Eleven in my hometown that if I went to this certain person, she would sell me beer, even though it never carded me. When I turned 18, I found a liquor store that if you dressed a certain way as a cowboy, she would sell you anything that you wanted to buy. So I started drinking at 16. I had a lot of family and friends tell me that I had a drinking problem. Back then, I said, I have no problem. I drink, I get drunk, fall down, no problem. I laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny because it was true. When I was 28 years old, I was at a bar drinking and eventually ended up taking somebody's life that night. I panicked and didn't know what to do. I put the body in the car and I drove around town and I dumped the body on the side of the road. Now when I got to prison, going through all of my trials and everything else, I was first charged with first-degree homicide. Knowing that I might have a life sentence and never having the chance of maybe ever getting out of prison, they came to a deal to me for second-degree murder. So I accepted that deal and I was sentenced to 48 years in prison. 2 years into my sentence, I had a friend, well, a partner in prison, come to me and he said, take this for reality. He said, your parole officer hasn't even been born yet. And that hit me pretty hard. I didn't know really how to deal with that at that point in time. I ended up doing 25 years straight in prison. I got out November 13th of 2013. I went through a special program that is no longer in existence, but I went through a program that I went through some extensive therapy and counseling before I was able to get out. When I got out, one of the guys that had gone through this program took me to the Ark and got me some regular street clothes. And I was asked when we got back, what was the first thing that really hit you the hardest? And I thought about it for a while and I said, when I walked into the Ark, it smelled funny. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, it smelled funny. He said, it's women's perfume. Now that maybe doesn't seem like a lot, but in prison, female officers don't wear perfume. So you don't smell that. When it all of a sudden hits you in the face, it's kind of like, God, that stinks. But and that's just reality. Something that I learned going through all of my therapy, and I see a therapist to this day, I still see a therapist. One of the things that I didn't realize is how many people's lives I affected by taking this person's life. It's not just my victim. It's not me. It has nothing to do with me and my family. It has to do with my victim's family. How many lives, not just their immediate family, but their extended family. Maybe kids that they may have had at that time, but aren't going to have that. Not being able to share birthdays or holidays with my victim's family. I am able to do that now, but 5 years ago I never thought I'd ever get this chance to speak to anybody. I also spoke in 2013. I was asked while I was at Concord to go speak, come here and speak at a profiling class. And the first thing I noticed when I walked into class and the students came in, you guys had computers and you had cell phones and everything else, and I told them, I said, if you hand me your cell phone and call me, I can't even answer because I don't know how. I didn't know anything about technology. You see it on TV or something like that, but it means nothing to me. It was a paperweight at that time. Something else that I've had to struggle with as a felon is finding a place to live, finding a job. When I was getting ready to get out of Concord, I don't know how many places I looked at to try to find some place to live. There are places here in Colorado Springs that takes anybody, but I was advised by not only my case manager, but my parole officer, don't go there. It's crime-ridden, you don't want to go in that part of town. So I stayed away from that because my thing was, I'm going to succeed. I want one chance, that's all I want. In prison, I saw people come and go and come and go and come and go, and I said, I just want one chance. That's all I want. Today, I had a job 3 days after I got out of prison, and I've been employed ever since. 2 or 3 different jobs. I've been at my current job for a month, and I'm now a shop foreman within a month. I've had 3 raises in 1 month, so I'm doing very well. I'm currently thinking about trying to see what kind of a loan I can get to buy a house, because that's a dream of mine, is to buy my own house. I want to see what kind of loan I can get to possibly buy a house. I'm doing very well. It has not been easy by any means. I see my parole officer, now I see my parole officer once a month. He's thinking about changing that to maybe once every 3 months. And you only get that if you do well. I don't drink, have no desire to drink, no will or desire to drink. And I had somebody ask me, well, what makes you think that you're not going to drink? And I told them all I have to do is take off my shirt. I didn't have 1 tattoo when I went into prison, and now I'm pretty much covered. So my reminder is every morning or every night when I get home from work and I take a shower and I see all the tattoos, that's my reason for never drinking again. I know when I was younger also, my family would tell me that I was a Jekyll and Hyde. I was the nicest guy when I was sober, but I'll take on the biggest, baddest guy in the bar when I'm drunk. And that happened more times than when I would give you a shirt off my back. I had a drinking problem, like I said, but I don't have one anymore. Don't want to, never want to again. I have never tried to contact my victim because I can't. But it also affected my family too. I did 25 years. I went in when I was 28, so I did almost half of my life at that time in prison. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't easy, but I learned a lot. I learned more going through this program and the therapy that I'm going through now. I had to figure out that I had to like me before I could love me, and I had to be able to take care of me before I could take care of anybody getting into a relationship or anything like that. I had to be able to take care of me first. And if I can't take care of me, and if I don't like me, then I don't really want you in my life, because I don't know where I'm going to go yet. I don't know what I'm going to do in 5 years. I know where I would like to be, but I don't know if I'm going to be there. I set goals for myself. I set small ones. I set large ones, extended goals, and that's what my life is about now. Is there any questions? Yeah.
What would you say was the most valuable thing, if anything, that you took from your time in corrections system?
I would say going through the therapy and figuring out and finding out the ripple effect to my victim and how many people I affected. Because I didn't really realize that. I thought it was, well, you know what, yeah, I have a victim, but it's not just about that victim. It's about everything, about their extended family, their personal family. And I had to learn about me and what I wanted out of life. Anybody else? Yes?
What was the process like when you were getting a job? And what advice would you give to others?
I know my first job, I worked at Goodwill. When I was in Concord, they have a special area that you can go in and search for jobs, and I just applied for the job. When I was in prison, I did a lot of janitorial work, so I had a lot of experience in janitorial, and that's where I got the job. If you have a background of some kind, I'm actually a welder by trade, and that's what I do now. I'm actually a fabricator welder, but because of my prison experience, that's where I got my first job was Goodwill. So if you have any kind of experience, whatever field it is, look in that type of field and just get more knowledge. The more knowledge you can get, the better off you'll be. Anybody else? Yes. My name is Richard. You want my last name too?
Yeah, Mariette.
Okay. See if you can spell this. Showerman. It's SCHAUERMAN.
All right, thank you.
You have to go.
So how did you feel about the combo program when you were there?
It's changed since I've been there. Just when I was getting ready to get out, they went into a different type of program.
You have to step your way up. And I think at this point in time, I don't know much about their STEP program, but we did have one when I was there. I think it works, but it only works if you want it to work. It's kind of like the thing of, you can send, when I was younger, I was sent to DUI classes. I was sent to all of that. I was court ordered to do all kinds of DUI classes. I drank on hand abuse. I figured out how to drink on hand abuse. That's how much of a drunk I was at that time. But somebody is not going to change until you are ready to change, and nobody can make you change until you're ready to change. Anybody else? Well, thank you for your time. Sorry, I got to leave to go back to work. My other foreman just texted me and said, "Where are you?" So I need to go.
I'll just talk from here, if that's okay. My name is Dana. I'm 52 years old, and I was arrested when I was 50. I grew up I was one of those kids who was the overachiever. I had straight A's. I was student council president, cheerleader, went to college, straight A's again, was in a sorority. My life was going great. Then I, careers, promotions, got married, had 3 boys, and then I really messed up. I made the worst decision of my life. I drank and I drove. I was trying to help a friend who was really depressed. I took her to go see her daughter, and then I came back together. We had a few drinks. And then I was turning left on Highway 83 onto Northgate, and a car hit us, and she was killed. And my life has never been the same since, and neither has her family's life been the same. And it was a split decision that I never should have made, ever. And I can't get it back. I can't change it. I was sentenced to 6 years in prison, and I served in the maximum security up in Denver, which was terrifying, to say the least. I was there for 22 months. By the grace of God, I was released 22 months. And when I was there, I thought I'd never see my family again, because when I heard that 6-year sentence, it was just a punch in the stomach, like you can't even imagine. My parents are in their 80s. I thought I'd never get out to see them alive again. Sorry. I thought I'd never see my boys. I thought I'd never see my husband. I thought I'd never see my home. And that's what is laid out in front of you. You lose everything. I was no longer Dana. I was no longer a mom. I was no longer a wife. I no longer had a career. I was no longer a contributing member of my family. I was nothing. And when I got to prison, I thought I was going to jail. I didn't even know what prison was like. I've seen Scared Straight, but I didn't realize that's what it's like. That's really what a lot of it is like. You have no sense of time. You don't know if it's night or day. My cell, I would try to measure it in feet, and I think it was about 6 feet by 8 feet. It's like living in a bathroom with someone else. They don't tell you what's happening. They don't tell you where you're going, what's going on. They came into my room and would cuff me. They would do this at 6 a.m. They'd say, okay, you have a meeting or you have an appointment at medical. I didn't know what for. They'd cuff me, put me in the orange jumpsuit, take me to Denver General. I didn't know what for, but I'm walking through the hospital in shackles. Kids would look at me and run away. Adults would look at me with disgust. And I don't blame them. I used to see the buses or the vans on the highway that said Sheriff's Department or something like this, and I would speed up to pass them. Like, oh my God, there's felons in there, there's mean, horrible people in there, I don't want to see them, I don't want to talk to them, they're bad people. And then I became one. You can't go outside, and if you're outside, you have to walk on the sidewalk, and women there will walk straight towards you, and with their shoulders like this. It's like, you have to turn like this, and not go on the grass, because you get in trouble. It's just the most crazy thing I've ever seen in my life. Working in the kitchen, it's unsanitary. They would wash the dishes in cold water, black mold on the roof, the walls. There would be dirt and rocks in the food. My first meal I ate, I chipped a tooth. I put in a note to try to get to see the dentist. It was an 18-month wait to see the dentist. We were locked down for about 2 weeks in our rooms at one time, which is nothing compared to, I guess, when the murder happened here in Colorado Springs. I think they were locked down for a month, meaning you're in your room, you can come out, get your meal, and go back to your room. And you don't even leave the building to get your meal, they bring it to your unit. The women there, I described it to my husband as, they're very loud, they're very, very mean, and they're vying for attention in any way they can get it. They're just wounded, they're angry, they're hurt, they're lost. And again, I was one of them. I just wasn't as loud, I just kind of stood in the background and cried the whole time. I worked in the laundry, and that was almost as bad as the kitchen. There was an infirmary there, and so we'd have to clean the soiled clothing. And we all had gloves, but it contained human waste, it contained blood, it contained vomit. And you're right there in it. And I never knew this existed. This is such a different world that I never wanted to know about. And every day I saw the ladies, I prayed for them, walking by, oh my God, what happened to her? And then I think, oh my God, what happened to her victim? And I was just terrified. I hit bottom with that car wreck, and then I hit bottom again. And again, I completely lost myself. And I tried to, the facility itself, again, was scary. The only way I got informed of anything is by talking to the fellow inmates, because they were kind enough to tell me, you know, when they do this, and don't say anything, and if somebody's fighting, look away. If a girl's having a seizure, walk, don't stop and hold her head, because she could be slipping you heroin, you know, and it was everything I've learned is just what you do, and it's not what you do. The Department of Corrections, the mission statement says, to protect the citizens of Colorado by holding offenders accountable, engaging them in opportunities to make positive behavioral changes, and become law-abiding, productive citizens. Which is good, but they don't provide the opportunities like I think they intend to. There's also in the value statements, it says, we are dedicated to providing opportunities for offender success. I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to go to AA. I couldn't until I was at a certain unit. I wanted to go to women's trauma group. I signed up for that. Women's support group, grief and loss, anger management. All of those had a 20-month wait. And then some of them were canceled. So there was no therapist that I could get to, nobody to talk to, nobody could go, oh my God, I'm not okay. I got to see a counselor, a psychiatrist to get on some antidepressants, and he put me on, I think, 4 antidepressants, 2 anti-anxiety, sleep medication, and I was a zombie. And then I realized that in Medline, they have Medline where you go whenever they call your unit, and women are running to Medline, and you get kicked out of the way, you get pushed out of the way. And these women, they call it Skittles. They're taking handfuls of these medications. And then I think, well, when they get out, what do? And part of what they do is they get out and they have 30 days worth of supply of medication. And when that's gone, they don't have the medication, they don't have a way of getting the medication. And so a lot of them will go back to using or going back to, like some of these gentlemen said, right back to their old lifestyles. That's just one part of it. They offer a Cisco program, which is computer building, Cosmo, culinary arts, and the dog program. A lot of these are for the people that are lifers, which is fantastic because it gives them something to do. But then for those of us who need it to learn a skill when we get out, it's not that you can't get in, first of all. They have a beautiful print shop. I was allowed to go see the print shop because I came from Current, which was a greeting card company, so I'm familiar with the printing industry. The presses weren't even moving. I said, why aren't you all printing? And they said, well, because we don't have enough jobs. I said, why isn't somebody getting some work for you all? And he said, well, we don't have anybody to do that. And I thought, here's a facility that could be printing. You can employ more of the prisoners, teach them more, and they couldn't do it. They had the prisoners folding socks. So these are just some of the things I saw, and I know that you all have intended to provide the most beneficial opportunities for the prisoners, but it was just very difficult, and a lot of it didn't make sense. And again, a lot of it didn't make sense to me because my mind was just a fog the whole time. I did meet a lady who, my glasses broke. If your glasses break, you can't get new ones for 3 months. I would not be able to walk anywhere without my glasses. And she fixed them. She came from Texas, and in that facility, they learned how to create glasses, fix glasses. She fixed my glasses with dental floss, and she did a beautiful job. And I think, why can't some of these ladies learn how to do things like that? Because as a felon, you wear that forever. It's the scarlet letter that you have. And again, applying for jobs, you have to check that box. I applied for a job yesterday and had to check it, had to explain what happened. Amazingly enough, they offered me the job, but I can't take it because I have to go to parole every Tuesday. I have to do random UAs. I have to go to some classes at night. I have to go to therapy at night. So I will have all that time away from my job, so I couldn't accept that job. By God's grace, I have a job now. I'm making minimum wage. I hadn't made minimum wage since I was like 14 years old. I'm back making minimum wage again, but I have a job. And again, being up there, they don't offer what I know they have reasons behind it, but for me, being kind of an outsider, being an insider, it doesn't make sense. Then I did go into what's called the TC program, which is therapeutic community. And in there, you're in one unit with all these women, and then you finally get some classes, relapse prevention, victim impact. And Richard talked about victim impact and how it affects so many people you don't even know. I mourn the loss of my friend, but I see my family, and I just think of what I put them through. And then I think, oh my God, what about Gina's family? What I put them through. She'll never see her grandchildren. Her parents won't see her again. Again, it's that ripple effect. And in that victim impact class, we had to write obituaries for everybody in our family. We had to give eulogies. We had to plan funerals. Grief and loss class, strategies for self-improvement, some of the other ones. So that was really difficult, but at least I got something. I had some opportunity to bring those things with me when I got out. And then when I got down to ComCorps, it was amazing. I never thought I'd see it. Because you get so in there, you just think everything in the world is gone. And it is beneficial. It's hard. With every step comes a whole lot of new rules that you have to learn. Like, do this, don't do this, do this. And a lot of them you learn by doing it wrong. And you just pray that you didn't do it too wrong to get in trouble. And I'm nervous and anxious about all of this anyway, so I'm really paranoid about doing anything wrong. But a lot of the people at ComCorps just think, yeah, hey, it's, hanging out with good friends and all that, but I just could not do that. You had to take, when I got a job, he's very lenient. I'm very blessed to have the job I have because he is lenient. He knows I'm here right now. He knows that I do have to leave on Tuesdays, and I feel bad about that, but that's just something that is one of those difficult things where you're supposed to get a job, that's part of what you do when you get out, but then it makes it really difficult to get a job and keep a job and have a job when that employer's that understanding. They provide transportation, but there were times when the transportation was late to pick me up. So the office closed, I couldn't call and say, there's nobody here to get me because I had no phone. And then sometimes they'd forget me, or they'd come get me early. It's just a whole new environment, a whole new world that you never knew existed, you never wanted to know existed, you never wanted to be in. And these are things that nobody knows until it's too late. You think, I'm fine. I would not have driven if I thought I was intoxicated. I would not. You just don't. You just don't do those things. I thought it was okay and it wasn't. And so there's so many people out there that think they're okay and they're not. And the changing point is when you get that split little hesitation in your head, that's telling you something right there. And if I learned anything, it's to listen and to think first. And learn to think before I speak and pray I said the right things. I learned to make good decisions and think of how, and think backwards, how it's going to affect everybody after I make that decision. Not right when I make it, but down the road, what it's going to do. I'll always have nightmares of the face of my parents' face, my husband's face when I was handcuffed and taken away. And then I always have nightmares of what Gina's family must have looked like when they were told that she died. And I'll never live a day without any of that in my heart, my head. And I just pray that somehow, if I can talk to one person and make them think or change their idea, or change their attitude, change anything. I talk to my boys and their friends come over and they give me a hug and they're like, Miss G, it's good to see you again. And I'm like, don't drink and drive. Don't get in a car with somebody who's been drinking. You'll be embarrassed. You might be embarrassed to go, I can do it, but don't. Just don't. Because in just a second, it's gone. So much is gone. For that person, their life, and even if she was just injured, it would have just been horrible. You just don't. And if you can tell anybody, just think about it beforehand. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter, just like alcoholism, drug addiction it doesn't pick people out. It's not like if you're black or you're white or you're anything. It's anybody. And so, again, I was saying to somebody the other day, well, they shouldn't sell to minors. And I thought, oh my God, Lena, I'm 50 years old. It doesn't matter if you're a minor or not. I mean, the laws are harder, but I should have known better. So there's a lot of moms out there. There's a lot of career women out there who could possibly make the same mistake that I did. So I'm glad y'all are here. It's good to see so many people interested in this sort of thing. It's really, really helpful, and hopefully you can make some of the changes and maybe spend a day or a night in jail and see what it's like, eat one of the meals, be undercover boss, and go in there and see it and live it, and then you'll realize what's going on behind those doors. So that's all I got. Thank you, guys. Are there any questions? Yes?
I have a question. Do you think the lack of treatment programs was simply due to the lack of women's facilities in the city of Colorado, given that there are only 2?
The lack of getting into the programs?
Right. And other treatment programs and programs.
I think it can be that, and I think that it's a lack of having people who want to go do it at the prison. I thought they had the class, the Cisco class, to teach people how to build computers, but what would make more sense is teaching people Microsoft Excel, Word, how to use the computers, how to use a cell phone, for God's sakes. Just things like that, and people to come in and be the counselors. From what I was told, they can't find people to do those things. But yes, it could be that too. Thanks. Yes?
What's your current relationship with your husband and children? Was your family bond broken, or did they always support you?
Thanks for asking that. It's been hard. I thought it was going to, and I remembered, I'm like, oh, my kids are perfect, my husband's perfect, and I got home, I'm like, oh. The house is dirty, but then I can't complain at home. And it's hard. It's relearning everything. It's relearning to date my husband again. It's, my youngest son just turned 18. He graduated from high school. By God's grace, I was there. And I didn't think I'd be there. That was one of those things that flashed. I'm never going to see him graduate. And he's angry. He is so angry at me, and he's embarrassed, and he's ashamed. And he tells me that all the time. And I'm hurt, but I have to be thankful that he's telling me that. Because I have to be reminded of that all the time. And my older two sons are 22 and 20. And they're a little more understanding, but it's still very weird. There's a definite disconnect there. And if I go into my room, I'm like, okay guys, I'm going in my room, because I used to hide vodka. It's like I'm not sneaking vodka. You can smell my breath, I'm okay. So it's like I feel like I need to announce every place I'm going, because I've got to earn their trust. So that's huge. Well, thanks for asking. Yes?
How do you like relationship with like the victim's family and forgiving? So
I have not talked to them. The victim's family, is that what you're asking? I have not talked to them. I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know what I would say if I could. If it was changed and somebody basically killed my mother or this happened, I would be so angry and so in pain that I can't even imagine. And being able to forgive me, oh my gosh, I'm finally being able to forgive me. So I have not talked to them. I just hope that they're well. Her daughter was in the same high school class as my son who graduated. And both of them did graduate, same ceremony. And that felt good. It felt horrible because she did it without her mom, but it felt good to know that she's at least going forward. Thank you.
So there is a specific prohibition in statute that says that cases like this, the offender, as they're referred to, is not allowed to have any contact with victims at any time, and that includes the victim's family. There is a process by which they can do an apology. There's a specific policy that we have for offender apologies. But as you might understand, it's a very controlled process to allow someone who's in prison or under supervision to have contact with their victim. It's not allowed unless we supervise it, and it's under specific conditions. I'm sure it wouldn't be the case here, but there are cases where offenders use that to victimize the family again. So it's kind of a difficult situation when you talk about, did you ever apologize? Because a lot of people say, yeah, why didn't they apologize? Well, first of all, they're not allowed to, okay. And second of all, it's going to be under very controlled circumstances so that the family's not victimized again. So whenever you look at them, there are a lot of people, present company included, that would like to apologize, would like to move forward, but there are policies and things in place to prevent that from just spontaneously happening. So when you talk to most people in DOC, you're going to say, have you ever talked to a victim? And the answer is, no. It's because they're not allowed to. And in a lot of cases, specific deliberate contact with the victim or the victim's family without permission is a serious parole violation. You can land them back in custody again. So it's a very delicate balance that we walk between allowing them to have that closure and protecting the family. So I'm sure she'd love to apologize, but it would have to be under certain circumstances, and that's, so if you ever talk to somebody and they say, no, I didn't, that's why they said, no, I didn't. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's great policy, it's just a policy that's there for good reasons.
Can I ask another question too? Once you started your prison term, like how long did it take for them to tell you that it was only going to be 22 months?
You don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Oh, wow.
You can, at a certain point, you're allowed to apply for community corrections, and then you wait and you wait and you wait, and then
so dysfunctional, it's very stressful. And then they will come to you and say, pack out, you're leaving tomorrow. And so you gather, you know, the little suave shampoo you have, the little saltine crackers, and you get ready to leave. So they don't tell anybody, you don't know.
Thank you.
So let me just address that real quickly, because that's a confusing thing. When you get sentenced to prison, that's a date that happens on the calendar. Boom, that's something that can be quantified, right? And you are sentenced to X amount of time in prison. We have a division within the division called time and release. And what they do is from the day that you are sentenced, they compute how long your sentence is supposed to be. They also have to figure out if you get credit for time served. How much time were you in jail before you went to prison? So they compute all that, and on the date that you arrive at DOC, they determine how long your sentence is. From that date, they compute 3 other dates. The first one is your parole eligibility date. That's the date, the first date that you would be allowed to go to prison, to go to parole from prison. The second one they compute is what they call the mandatory release date. On that day, you will be released from prison no matter what your behavior is. And on the third date, that's your statutory discharge date. That's the date that you're actually done with your parole obligation. Your parole eligibility date is the first date you can go out to parole, but that doesn't mean you're going to go that day. So what happens is people start having a hearing with the parole board as soon as they're eligible for parole, and maybe in some cases sooner than that. The parole board ultimately determines whether or not they're going to be released to parole or not. The parole board can say, you're eligible for parole, have a nice day, you're going to parole. And they choose the date that they're being released. We don't do that, the halfway house doesn't do that, you're under the jurisdiction of the parole board once you come into custody. On your mandatory release date, you will be released. Between those 2 days, your eligibility date and your mandatory, the parole board can keep you or they can release you, it's totally up to them. If you have a violent crime, whether it's violent by statute or violent by its nature, and the parole board has a list of those crimes, a single parole board member cannot release you. It has to be referred to the full board, and the full board has to vote. There's 7 members of the board. You have to get 4 people to agree that you should be paroled before you can be paroled. If they just say, no, you're not going out, you never go out. And then finally, on your mandatory release date, you are actually sent to parole. Now, to make it more confusing, we have community corrections. Those people are still inmates. They're living in halfway houses. They're not actually on parole, but they're supervised by parole officers because we're the only people that can do that. The last 2 people you have up here, Dana and the gentleman next to her, they're both actually still inmates. They're in prison. You just don't know it because they're out here with us. So they've not actually been progressed to parole yet because that's what the parole board decides, not us. Parole officers don't make that choice, the parole board does. So they've been given the opportunity to live in the community as inmates, and they're under a lot of restrictions, as she pointed out. They're under curfews by statute. They're electronically monitored, which means they have to wear an ankle bracelet. We have to know where they are. They have to call in every day. They have to be seen every week. They have to do a lot of things because their supervision is much higher because they're actually inmates in prison. It's just you don't know that because they're out here with us. Both of them will see the parole board at various times, and ultimately the parole board will decide at what point to let them go. So you talk about, are you going here, are you going there? Some of those dates are fuzzy because it's up to the parole board. Now they'll both know when their next hearing is going to be to see the parole board, and at that time the board can choose to release them or not. So it's not even up to how well you do necessarily in that time and community. The parole board has to decide you're eligible because they're the people that make that decision. 7 people on the parole board, they're all appointed by the governor of the state of Colorado. They don't work for parole, we don't work for them. They're an independent body that makes their own decisions. So sometimes we'll take people in there and they'll get paroled, and we scratch our head and we're like, where did that come from? Sometimes they get kept and we're like, why? We should probably let them go. But the parole board makes an independent decision based on what they think was the nature of the crime and so on. So when you start talking about dates, there's a whole lot of math. And I'm sorry, when I applied for this job, I was told there would be no math. But it's okay because they don't let me add. It's not up to us at all. So whenever we as parole officers look at a case, we know what their eligibility date was. We know their mandatory release date. We kind of know their discharge date because as long as they keep getting good time or earned time, that release date continues to move backwards toward them. Okay? So we don't really know when exactly they'll be done, but they'll be done eventually, and that date will keep working back to them as long as they don't have any violations. Does that just totally confuse you? Or do you kind of get it?
I get it.
Yes? You know, they used to take a lot of input from us, but we're the people that know them best because we see them every week. They may ask us in general terms, what do you think? But not like it used to be. It used to be that they really wanted to know what we thought. They really, really did. And now they don't. If they're on the fence, they may ask us. But the reality is that when you go in to have a hearing, you get 10 or 15 minutes with a board member, and they're going to decide in that 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a little longer depending on the schedule that day, they're going to decide who you are and whether you're eligible for parole. Again, if it's violent or something happened that caused it to be classified as violent, it's the person who does the hearing will then go back to the full board, present the whole case and say, this is the hearing I did, this is what they said, this is what we know, now we all vote, do they get to go or do they not? If they're not violent, then that one parole board member doing the hearing can make the decision to release them. And that release can come as quickly as they can do the paperwork, which right now takes them about a week or maybe two. So they do talk to us, but it's not like part of that reform I was talking about earlier. They're really trying to make that decision independent of what we think because they want to make sure that they're giving everybody the ample opportunity. And quite frankly, if you got a bad parole officer that doesn't like you, do you really want my opinion? It's much easier to look at what they've accomplished and what they've done, what they've completed, and those kinds of things. So, like I said, they'll occasionally ask us what we think, but usually they've got a really good idea how they're going to vote before they go into that. So anything else? And we do hearings every month, and they will be seen on a regular schedule. So if, for instance, she goes to the board and they say, we're not going to release you, they have to set a hearing date, and it has to be within a year. They can see her in a month, they can see her in 3 months, they can see her in a year. But they have to see her again, and they have to give her a decision. If you get incredibly violent things like murder, depending on the case, they can say, we only have to see you every 3 years. Come back in 3 years, we'll decide that. So it's a pretty arbitrary system from their point of view. So I'll shut up because you want to talk.
Everybody getting kind of tired now? You guys need to stand up, stretch it a little bit, sit back down.
You're good.
No, that's good. Okay, my name is Red Thorpe. I dropped out of high school. I was 17 years old. Last man standing, huh?
Save the best for last.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay.
I dropped out of high school when I was 17, enlisted in the Marine Corps. I'm a Vietnam veteran. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I had a drug and alcohol problem. And that would be an understatement. I sold drugs, took drugs. I was out of control. During a drug deal, it went bad. Somebody lost their life. And I got convicted of first-degree murder and aggravated assault. I got sentence. I got a life sentence and 10 to 20 years running concurrently. I did 25 years in the joint. When I went in, I was 22 years old. 22. Not the same age a lot of you people out here are. Right, roughly. 22. Choices and decisions that we make in our lives. Happens in a split second. At 22, given a life sentence, I didn't think I was ever going to get out. I was eligible for parole in 20 years. That's what the law was at the time. During my time incarcerated, I didn't change. My first probably 13 to 15 years, I was the same person who committed those crimes in the joint. I was a predator. If you had something that I wanted, I will stab you and take your life and take it from you. That's how I lived. I didn't care about you. Anybody else. It's all about me. If I felt someone disrespected me, then I put the wrath on them. And that's how I lived. I had no remorse whatsoever. None. I didn't regret what I've taken, what I did. That's just who I was at the time. That was my survival mode. That's how I survived. One time, well, actually it's happened 3 different times I've been stabbed while I was locked up. Because that's the way I lived. And I pulled through all 3 times. I guess I was just too freaking ornery to die. And I didn't give a shit. I didn't. I sold drugs in the joint. One of the times they threw me in the hole for selling heroin. While I was in there, the warden came in, knocked on my door, cell door, said, "Hey, Red, I need you to come out. I want to talk to you." I said, "All right." Pulled me out of my cell and he said, "Hey, look, man, I've known you since you were just 22 years old. You were just a kid." He said, "One of 2 things are going to happen to you if you keep going the way you're going." He said, "You're going to die in here of old age, or a bunch of these dudes are going to get together and kill you. One of those 2 things are going to happen to you. But if you want to change your life and do something positive with it, I'll help you. But it's got to be something positive, Red." I said, "All right. I'm coming back tomorrow, and I'll talk to you." I said, "Okay." Sure enough, the warden came back the next day, kept his word. And he said, "Well, have you thought about it?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, I said, I think I was 37 at the time. 37 years old. And I said, "Man, I'd like to get my GED." He said, "Okay. Pack your stuff up." I I was out on the main line within an hour. I had all my stuff on this cart, pulled it into the cell block, and the guard stopped me there and he said, "Hey, just drop your stuff off in your cell and get over to the school. They're waiting for you." He already called them. They were waiting on me. So I got over to the school, and he said, the guy's name was Tomas, and he said, "Hey, the warden called, said you want to get your GED." I said, "Yeah, thinking about it. I've never read a book before. 37 years old, never read a book. Not even a comic book." Took me 2 years to get that damn GED. I couldn't pass that math to save my life. Damn. It was killing me. Whoever thought of putting letters with math? But I got it. Felt pretty good. And at the time, I was down in the Ordway prison at the time. And Otero Junior College used to come in there at night and have classes out of La Junta. And took me a little over 2 years and I got my associate degree. Well, sometime during that time, and I can't tell you when or an exact day or anything like that, but the way that I started to think about things started to change. Instead of, if I had an issue before, I just pull out a knife and I just make it go away. But now I thought, well, there should be other ways to handle it. Communication. But you had to be creative. Because I wasn't no punk and I'm not no chump. To nobody. And that includes today. I'm not no rat. None of that shit. I'm still a convict. Let's not forget that part. And I always will be. I'll go to my grave. I'll have to have 2 caskets. One for my body and one for all my secrets. But I learned how to handle difficult situations verbally. Using my head. So I started to change. And the amount of violence that I was surrounded with, that I created myself, started to diminish. Felt pretty good getting that associate degree, got to tell you. I thought, well, man, if I could do that, I'm going to try for my bachelor's. So I told the warden. He said, "Yeah, go ahead." I said, "Well, I got to have these videotapes sent in." Well, back then, they didn't really allow that kind of stuff. He said, "Well, you have them sent to the school, and then when they come in, you could go over there and view them." I said, "All right." And they would have the classes. They would videotape the classes and then send it to me, or to the school. That's how I eventually got my bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree in business with a focus in what? Accounting. Numbers. So instead of inflicting pain on other individuals, I thought I'd do it to myself. That That felt pretty good getting a bachelor's degree. I did. We even had a little party. Got some Little Debbie's, can of Stokes green chili, made a spread. That's what we called it in the joint, spread. Pulled out the locker box, opened up a can, opened up a bag of torts, and got busy. Tortilla chips. Then I started to work on my master's degree. The warden, guess what? I wanted to go to CSU. And they had a program where you could get your MBA same way. They would videotape the class live, so you were always 1 week behind the regular students. But I had to take a GMAT test. Well, the warden approved for me to go out and take that test. But I had to pay for it myself. I said, all right. So I went out and took that GMAT test. And I passed it. Scored high enough where they accepted my scores and let me in. So I started my MBA at CSU. And it was getting kind of expensive. I think they wanted like $1,100 a class back then. So I did some shopping around. City University of Washington State had an MBA program that I could transfer my credits to for $800 a class. So I did that. And got my MBA with a specialty in finance. Damn in numbers again. At the same time, I thought, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in the joint. I seen the parole board twice while I was locked up. By then, I had 20 years in. I seen them the first time. They gave me a 3-year deferment. Come back in 3 years. All right. Saw them again. They said, come back in a year. Well, during that time, I put in for a halfway house. You were eligible to do that. Well, they told me on a Friday that I was leaving Monday to the halfway house. Blew me away. I was all freaked out. All freaked out. I get out. They drop me off at the halfway house. And just keep in mind, when I got locked up, they didn't have personal computers. They didn't have that. They didn't have cell phones. The technology, they just didn't have it. So it was really crazy. I spent all my adult life in prison. Went in when I was 22. I'm 47 years old now. All right? When I got out. Not now. I wish. But we can say that. But 47 years old. All my adult life. What do I know? I know a lot of book stuff. I do. I was reading textbooks for pleasure. First job I got, I was a maintenance guy at a motel. Beat up, run down motel. I would shampoo carpets, you had urine stains in it, cleaning out toilets. Hey, I had an MBA. telling you, making minimum wage, and I was out, living at the halfway house. I got lost one day. Within a couple of days after I got out, I got lost. I got off the bus and I didn't know where I was, and I was all freaked out. I called the halfway house and told them, hey, somebody's got to come and get me and send me back to the joint, because I can't handle it out here. It was just too much. Too much. I didn't know how to use the damn phone. I didn't know how to make a phone call. None of that stuff. Well, they came and got me, calmed me down. They let me give it one more week. I said, all right. Well, you can see I stayed. I wanted to go back to school, because that's what I really enjoyed was school. That was my control. I had control over that. Went back to school, got my doctorate. Now, I've had other jobs. I worked for the Department of Defense. What? What? The Department of Defense. It gives you a real warm, fuzzy feeling about our national security. Yeah, I worked for the Department of Defense for a few years. Then we got caught in a BRAC. It's called base realignment and closure, where they close certain bases every year for cost-saving measures, the government. So they closed the base where I worked at, my function, and they moved it to Indianapolis. They said, come on, Red, come with us. I can't go to Indianapolis. I haven't even made parole yet. So I got a job at a college. And I worked there probably 7, 8 years, and I worked my way up to department chair for the business department. And this is up in Denver. And then I decided to go back to work for the government. Right now, I work for the Department of Interior, where I take care of the financials and auditing for the United States Supreme Court, the United States District Courts, and NASA. Those are my clients. And that's my day job. At night, I'm a college professor at the university. I teach business classes, management, auditing, accounting, finance. I stay pretty busy. I have a family. The gal I met not too soon after I got out, I married into a ready-made family. Already there for me. And they were old enough, I didn't have to change any diapers. None of that. It was cool. And we've been together ever since. I own my own home up in Denver. I own a home in Pueblo that I rent out. I do well. I have all the toys. Brand new trucks, motorcycles, boat, all that stuff. I'm still an inmate. I haven't made parole. Every year I see the parole board. I see them in January. And what are they going to tell me? give us another year, Brad. Give us another year. That's okay. I'm out here, I'm free. The only thing I can't do is, I can't travel out of state. Can't go out of state. I can go anywhere my parole officer will allow me to go within the state, but I can't go out of state. Even his hands are tied on that one. It's a state law, statute. So, but I started off I got out in 2003. I wore an ankle bracelet for the first 7 years. Then they took me off of that, and then they put me on a pager for about a year. And a pager, where if it goes off, you got to go to a payphone and call. Well, they're really starting to do away with payphones. You don't see used to be they were on every corner, but now you have to really hunt for those things. And where they have them located at now, I don't even know if I want to get out of my truck and walk over to it. You put it up to your ear and there's something that's stuck to it, some gooey stuff. Well, they ended up taking me off the pager. Now, I have a curfew. I have to be home by 11 o'clock at night, and I can't leave before 5 in the morning. So they'll call me twice a month between 11 and 5 to make sure I'm home. I call in every day to it's called CWISE, part of the Department of Corrections. I call there every day to check in. I'm at a point now where I give 2 UAs a month, urine tests. And I could go any 2 days I want. It used to be I had to call to find out what my color was. Then it got to the point where they said, just go 2 days out of the month. So, I guess the message that I have for everyone in this room, it's about choices and decisions. I've met a lot of professionals locked up. Students, college students. Oh man, me and my buddies there, we were in the dorm and we were drinking, and I went to go make a beer run and something happened. Or, man, I thought she really liked me. Man, she was all up on me and all that kind of shit. Next thing you know, the next day, they were accusing me of some dumb shit, you know, like, guys, no means no. It really does. Just say it, okay? And besides, a lot of you guys are looking across the room. Hey, the majority of you are way too good looking to go to prison. Okay? I'm just saying. Way too good looking. You wouldn't make it. You'll end up being somebody's boy toy. I promise you. I'd sell you for a carton of smokes. It's harsh. Imagine you go into school now writing a term paper. What do you think it would be like writing a term paper when the guy next door to you in the very next cell is being raped? And you have to hear that while you're writing your term paper. or 3 cells down, someone's being stabbed to death. Or I'm on my way to the escuela and I got my books and I'm going down the tier. I have to step over somebody who's dead. They just ain't found it yet. I'd rather go to school with you guys. It's about the choices and decisions that we make in life. Think about that. Any one of you are capable of going to prison by making the wrong choice and decision at a particular time and moment in your life. These gentlemen here have some powerful stories. Not stories, testimonies. You have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you'll never accomplish nothing. And that goes for me, these gentlemen here, and you guys. We have to believe in ourselves first. Believe in yourself. Picture yourself doing it. Picture yourself graduating. Picture yourself finishing this term, and you can do it. Have faith in yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Do it yourself. Look, if I can do it, any of you people can. I promise you that. If I can do it, you can do it. I don't have no magic sauce, secret sauce. I don't. So just keep that in mind, okay? Take that with you today. Believe in yourself. There's nothing in this world you can't do. Nothing. Anybody have any questions?
So it sounds like you've done a lot of really good work and you've improved yourself a lot. You're doing a lot of good things. Has the parole board given a reason why they won't parole you even though you've made such progress?
They say it's the nature of the offense, first-degree murder, and not enough time served. Those are the 2 boxes they check. Anybody else?
There's one back here.
Oh, yes.
You said that you had a predatory instinct, which is basically survival. And I was kind of curious. First and foremost, kudos to how you changed your life around. That's a great accomplishment. But was it maybe your biological or how you was raised as a kid or joining the Marines that altered your strategy maybe or
Yeah.
psychological?
My psychological makeup?
Yeah, makeup of survival mode or predatory mode.
Hey, I'm just a hard-headed, mean son of a bitch. All that, I wasn't breastfed enough. I didn't have a good connection with my father. Hey, that kind of stuff, that doesn't hold any water with me. Whatever I do and whatever I did, I take full responsibility for, and I don't put that on nothing. Nothing else but me. Yeah. But, hey, thanks. Yes? Really? I teach at CTU in Denver. All right. Hey. Oh, another But for me, I can only speak for me, is that was the first time in my life that anyone cared about me, showed any concern about me. That was the first time, and it blew me away. And and I could tell it was genuine. Yeah. And I think that was the hook. Yeah. He just said that he's known me since I was 22 years old. Just a kid coming into the joint. And he knew what was going to happen to me if I kept up that type of lifestyle in there. He was real clear on that. Yes, sir.
It's not really a question, but I just want to tell you, like, regardless of everything else you did, thank you for your service.
Oh, hey, it was an honor. Thank you. All right, hey, well, thanks for having us.